Yo, what's going on YouTube? Cleveland Sports TV here, and today we're going to be doing more Cleveland Browns football talk, and specifically I'm going to talk about the top 10 free agents that I think the Browns should target in this coming up off season. I can't get enough of Browns football. I'm so excited about what's going on. Baker Mayfield and company. You have Freddie Kitchen, who was just hired as the new Cleveland Browns head coach. I'm super excited about that. He was my number one choice from pretty much day one. I talked a lot about it on in one of the Facebook Cleveland Brown groups that I'm in, and I'm also going to put the link in the description below of the Cleveland Browns Facebook group in case any of you Browns fans out there would like to join. Great group of people, some pretty intelligent people as well. I think you guys would enjoy it. So if you're a diehard Cleveland Browns fan and you love to talk Cleveland Browns football, make sure you check out the link below, and let me know, in the comment section whether or not you joined or not. But like I said, guys, my list of top 10 free agents that I think the Browns should target. As you know, I think the Browns' biggest need, well, as you know from my previous video, I think the Cleveland Browns' biggest need is that front seven, and specifically the defensive tackle position, to stop that run. Especially in the second half of the season, we were a little bit exposed, in particular the last game against the Baltimore Ravens, where they ran for 300 yards on us. And as you guys know, we see the Ravens 2 times every single year. We also have Joe Mixon, James Conner, and a couple other guys in this division who can really run the football. So I think the emphasis, especially playing the AFC North, is to stop the run. And I think John Dorsey is going to go all in, because once these guys, or once the Browns are able to stop the run, I really think this defense is going to take off, because we do have some really legitimate pieces. Guys like Myles Garrett, Agba, who's kind of gotten better every single year, although I do think Agba will end up playing some more D tackle going forward, but we'll get into that with more videos here coming up. You got Joe Schobert, Christian Kirksey, who will be coming back, Peppers, who really stepped up last year. So happy for him. Randall, beast. I love the Randall signing from last year. Denzel Ward, obviously. So there are some pieces on the defensive side of the ball, but we really need to stop the run. So you're going to see a couple front seven guys and a couple D tackles in this list. And obviously that's because that's what I think the biggest Browns needs are. So yeah, let's get into it, guys. Thanks for watching the video. Don't be afraid to hit that thumbs up button, and if you guys like what you see, go ahead and hit that subscribe button as well, as I will be pushing out all kinds of Cleveland sports videos and content in the future. I will also be doing podcast reactions and some video game gameplay with some Cleveland sports teams. But yeah, thank you guys for watching, and let's get to it. Yeah. All right, so number one on my list here, I have Adam Humphries, wide receiver. Played for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers the last few years. He's 26 years old, and this guy is really underrated. I think we can get him on a really decent club deal. What's really good about this guy is he roams the middle of the field, a very good possession receiver, and he's just a fighter, man. He's a dog. I think he would fit perfectly with the offense, kind of playing a little bit of a Rashad Higgins role. But this is a guy you can count on. Led his team in receptions last year. I think the last 2 years he led his team in receptions. This is one of those guys that nobody wants to talk about. Obviously, we just hired the old Buccaneers offensive coordinator, and I know this is a guy that he really likes. So I know there will be some rumblings in the front office about bringing this guy on board. I think John Dorsey would like him. We already know the offensive coordinator's worked with him, and he likes him. So I think this would be a good fit. So we got Adam Humphries, wide receiver. Played for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers the last couple years, and he's only 26 years old, so a little bit younger. I think it's a good fit. But let's move on to the next one. All right, here we have Anthony Barr, outside linebacker from the Minnesota Vikings. This guy's also 27 years old, but what I love about him is his ability to cover the middle of the field, cover tight ends, cover slot receivers, as well as when he needs to get to the quarterback. He's pretty good at that as well. Tremendous speed and size at the linebacker position. This is one of those guys where I think if he would come in, if the Browns signed him, he came in next year, I think he would make an immediate impact. I think him and Christian Kirksey roaming that outside linebacker position could be deadly. But Anthony Barr, one of my favorite outside linebackers in the league, and it just so happens that he's a free agent. I think he'd be an amazing fit. Like I said, speed and his ability to cover the field, A++. So yeah, Anthony Barr. Let's move on to the next one here. Number 3, we have CJ Mosley. A lot of Browns fans should be familiar with this name. He's coming from the Baltimore Ravens, their middle linebacker. I'm pretty sure he was the team captain in the second half of the year last year for this Ravens team as well. But don't quote me on that. 27 years old, an absolute stud. He played at Alabama, So he's got that winning pedigree. And this guy, when I say middle linebacker, he's truly a middle linebacker. He can do it all. A little bit slower than most middle linebackers, I believe, but he makes up with it with the toughness and his strength. And if you pair him up with, Joe Schobert, those two, you can kind of use them kind of in like a nice little tandem duo, because Schobert's a little bit better, not a little bit, he's a lot better in the pass coverage game. I think Joe Schobert actually ranked #1 for middle linebackers last year as far as pass coverage goes. Once again, don't quote me on that. I just know he's for sure a top 5 guy. But CJ Mosley, like I said, we need a lot of help in that front 7. This is a guy I think you can bring in. He's played in the AFC North. He played at Alabama. He knows what it's all about. Toughness. I think he'd be an amazing addition to this Browns front 7 and this defense. So yeah, CJ Mosley, middle linebacker from the University of Alabama. Let's move on to the next one here. A lot of you guys should be familiar with this name. We have Jadaveon Clowney, former #1 overall pick from the Houston Texans. He's slated to be a free agent. Of course, and let me back up a second here, guys. A lot of these guys are pending whether or not teams are going to franchise tag them and whatnot. However, they could very well be free agents. So if these guys are free agents, these are the top 10 players that I think the Browns should target or take looks at. It doesn't mean that they are going to be free agents, obviously, because you can be franchise tagged and whatnot. But just kind of looking forward a little bit here. But Jadaveon Clowney, defensive end, absolute monster. I think it goes without saying, Myles Garrett and Jadaveon Clowney on those edges would help you tremendously. It's got that Super Bowl pedigree. You know how the Broncos did it with Peyton Manning. Man, just having those two on the edges would change the defense in so many ways. Those two getting to the quarterback will help your run game. That will help the middle of that defensive line. It will help your cornerbacks with coverage, because obviously the quarterback's not going to have enough time. I just think the addition to him, even if he's not 100% all the time, it's just another guy that the offense has to keep track of. You're not going to be able to double team Myles Garrett because you'll have this guy on the other side. He's going to be pricey, and he's probably going to be one of the most coveted free agents if he is a free agent. However, the Browns have the money to spend, and boy, oh boy, I think the signing of Jadaveon Clowney would make this a top 10 defense quickly, not to mention what we can do with the rest of free agency and the NFL draft. So Jadaveon Clowney, defensive end, coming from the Houston Texans. Let's move on to the next one. David Irving. Now, I realize a lot of you guys might not be familiar with this name. He played defensive tackle for the Dallas Cowboys the last couple of years. He really came on strong last year. He had a huge year last year. I think a lot of that might have to do with the defensive front for the Dallas Cowboys, or the defense in general for the Dallas Cowboys. I think it really lifted his game a little bit. But obviously we have Myles Garrett and we have some guys who can play too, so why wouldn't that be able to fit with our defense as well? D tackle is really a position that we need to address. I know that David Irving's strong suit is more in the pass rush. However, he's no slouch when it comes to the run defense. But we'll see what happens. I really think that the Dallas Cowboys are going to do whatever they can to re-sign this guy just because of the emergence he had last year. But this dude would be a perfect fit on that Cleveland Browns front 7. And I just think he'll be a great compliment to Myles Garrett and so on. So let's move on to the next one here. We got Dee Ford, outside linebacker / edge position from the Kansas City Chiefs. This is a guy that John Dorsey drafted in the middle rounds a few years back. John Dorsey is so high on this guy, so that's why I put him into this, just because I think John Dorsey is going to take an extra hard look at him. Just because he's worked with him before, he believed in him once. He was the one who went out and drafted him. And let's just be honest, this guy has really come into his own the last 2 years. I'm pretty sure he had a Pro Bowl appearance last year, and I'm not sure if he has one this year. But it's all about speed for this guy. Speed and getting to the quarterback and coverage. This guy, he's just an animal. Every time I watch a Chiefs game this year, this guy was I would say the catalyst on that defensive front to go along with Chris Jones. But yeah, Dee Ford, outside linebacker, tons of speed. And he can really get to the quarterback. And as I said, front 7 is really what I think the Browns are going to be looking to focus on here in this upcoming year. John Dorsey knows him well, drafted him obviously, so I think he'd be a great fit. Dee Ford, outside linebacker / edge position. He's 28 years old. He's a little older than the last couple of guys I've showed you, but he's still playing in the prime of his career. I think a 2 to 3 year deal would be perfect for somebody like this. And I think he's my top 3 for guys I would like to see come in next year. Dee Ford. Let's move to the next one. Demarcus Lawerence. This is probably the #1 free agent if he becomes a free agent in this year's market. Just an outstanding last couple years, an absolute sack monster. I would rather have Demarcus Lawerence over Jadaveon Clowney, but to me, I think that's a coin flip. I think you can make a case for either or. I'm going to go with Demarcus Lawerence over Clowney just because of Clowney's injury risk. A lot of people talk about whether or not, Clowney gives 100% on every single play, and I don't think that's an issue with a guy like Demarcus Lawerence. I think he's going to go out there and he's going to give you his all every single week. Not really injury prone. If he's had injuries, I don't think he's been out for an extended period of time. 27 years old, so he's just getting into the prime of his career. Great body, great size. Like I said, you match him up with Myles Garrett, and you have yourself a two-headed monster. And like I said, those are one of those things that's a recipe for playoff wins, and a Super Bowl appearance. You need to be able to get to the quarterback from that defensive end or outside linebacker position. And I don't think there's anybody else better than Demarcus Lawerence and Myles Garrett to team up together and do so. So let's move on to the next one here. Frank Clark, defensive end, 26 years old. Now, funny story about Frank Clark. He came out, I think it was early last week. Maybe it was the weekend, but within the last couple weeks, and he said that I never played at 100% all year. He didn't miss any games. If he did, there wasn't many at all. But he claimed that he had played at 60% for the entire year, and he still put up great numbers, and he had a good year. So imagine what an offseason would do if he can recover, get to 100%. He's 26 years old. He's still young. He's coming from that Seattle Seahawks team who's just, they just have one of those championship pedigrees. I know they haven't really advanced far in the playoffs of late, but it's just that culture that they have in Seattle. I think he would just be a great addition. It's all about winning, toughness, speed. I would love the addition to Frank Clark. I would put Frank Clark right below Clowney and Demarcus Lawerence, but there's not much of a gap there. I'd be happy with any of the three at the defensive end position if that's really where the Browns decided they wanted to go. But yeah, Frank Clark from the Seattle Seahawks, defensive end, 26 years old, could be a great addition. Definitely on my top 10 list. Let's move to the next one here. Grady Jarrett. All right, so this is probably the number one coveted defensive tackle who's going to become a free agent. 26 years old. He played in the Super Bowl a couple years ago with the Atlanta Falcons, if some of you remember. 3 sacks and 2 tackles for losses. So 5 tackles for losses to go with 3 sacks in that Super Bowl game. An absolute beast at the defensive tackle position. To me, I think it's the Browns' absolute biggest need, defensive tackle. They need somebody in that middle. I, for one, think that they're going in round 1 of this upcoming draft. I think they're going to go D tackle. However, if they don't, if they signed Grady Jarrett to a free agent deal and then went, Devin White from LSU or something like that, or just best player available, I'd be happy with that as well. But yeah, Grady Jarrett, defensive tackle from the Atlanta Falcons, absolute stud and a beast at the defensive tackle position. Not a lot of people talk about this name, especially in a lot of the groups I'm in, Cleveland Browns talks. Everybody wants to go out and get, Ed Oliver or whoever in the draft. And I'm sitting here saying, what's wrong with Grady Jarrett? Absolute stud, and he's still young, 26 years old. He might not even have reached his prime of his career yet. So if I'm John Dorsey, I'm taking a real hard look at this guy because he would solve your defensive tackle position rather quickly, I believe. Let's move on to the next person here. All right, so a lot of you guys might disagree with this, especially because of the allegations that he was facing. But we have Kareem Hunt from the Kansas City Chiefs last year. As we know, he was kicked off the team and suspended and whatnot for whatever his allegations were. We're not going to really go over all that in this video, but he's only 24 years old, a lot of youth, and he was probably a top 5 running back in the league before this all went down. Now, what's unique about this is John Dorsey drafted Kareem Hunt, obviously, coming from the Kansas City Chiefs, and if there's anybody to give him a second chance, I really believe it would be John Dorsey, the guy who drafted him. Give him a little bit of a fresh start. Obviously, I think he would sit behind Nick Chubb. Sorry, I couldn't think of his name for whatever reason. I think he would sit behind Nick Chubb. He'd probably get 12 carries or so a game at most. But what is wrong with some running back depth? I don't think he would be... You're going to sign him for a really club-friendly deal, probably even a 1-year deal, low money. And worst case scenario, he just, something happens, an injury happens, Duke Johnson goes down, Chubb goes down. You have this guy, and you really just don't miss a step. I'm not saying that this is a guy that I would want to bring in, but I really do believe that you're going to see this name surrounding the Cleveland Browns a lot before the start of the season. I know it might come with some scrutiny, but I don't think it would be a terrible idea. So yeah, Kareem Hunt, running back, played in Toledo, so he's familiar with the Northeast Ohio, so I don't think the cold weather would be an issue for him. And obviously there's a ton of talent there. So yeah, maybe John Dorsey gives him a second chance, and man, I wouldn't be mad with having a three-headed monster. Nick Chubb, Duke Johnson, and Kareem Hunt. I mean, good Lord, that would be nice. So let's move on to the next one here. I think there's only one or two more. No, I know this is the last one. All right, so we have cornerback Ronald Darby, 25 years old, coming from that championship Super Bowl winning Philadelphia Eagles team. I might be too high on the fact that a player is coming from a winning culture or a Super Bowl winning team. It might just be me, but I love guys who have that pedigree, who have it in their genes, who are coming from a team who's all about winning. It's something that the Cleveland Browns really haven't had a lot of lately, and with the emergence of the Browns and Baker Mayfield and this young team, you're going to start seeing a lot of bigger names being associated with the Browns, especially with their cap space. Man, if you could pair up Ronald Darby, Denzel Ward and Randall and company in that secondary, I would love it. I do think the Browns are going to address the cornerback position, whether it's in the middle of the draft, lower end free agents. I think Darby is probably the most coveted cornerback in this free agent class. However, I would not be mad if we signed him. If we spend a little bit of money to go get him, I think to lock down our cornerback position, totally fine by me. So yeah, Ronald Darby, cornerback. Please note, he is coming off of an ACL injury, which kind of concerns me for cornerback, especially with the cuts and having to, go against wide receivers who are just the best in the world. But the ACL injury alone, if he's able to come back from it, even if he's 90% of Ronald Darby in the past 2 years, I'll take it. Can definitely help this secondary. And if the deal's right, I wouldn't mind bringing him here to Cleveland. So if John Dorsey took a look at him, I would not be mad about it. But I think that does it for our list, guys. It does. So those are the top 10 free agent targets that I would like to see come to Cleveland. Obviously, a lot of these guys are pending because teams could franchise tag players. I think Jadaveon Clowney and Demarcus Lawerence have a pretty good chance of being franchise tagged. But if not, I also do believe both of those guys have a pretty good chance of being in a Browns uniform next year. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Don't be afraid to comment down in the comment section who you guys would like to see the Browns target in free agency. It doesn't have to be from my list. If you have any new ideas, let me know. I will definitely comment back and conversate with you guys in the comment section. And like I said, I will put that link for the Facebook group down in the description below. Don't be afraid to check that out and chat with us, especially when it comes to Cleveland Browns football. And yeah, thanks for watching, guys, and stay safe. Go Browns. Peace.